Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the live studios of the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We're here in Govardhan still, here with Bhakta Matt, the latest brahmachari in the block, and Giridhari Prabhu, who's here, the wandering mendicant, looking for a place to land, and so far so good. And all of you out in cyberspace, seems like our situation is getting better in terms of our connection, and we're live again, so welcome aboard, and we hope you're with us, some of you, and we thank you for being there with us. It's so nice. All right, here we are, going forward into the Srimad-Bhagavatam deeper in the third canto. We reach the 12th chapter, 48th verse. And first we always read Sanatana Goswami's beautiful glorification of the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And by chanting this every day before we recite the Bhagavatam, it helps us go deeper into what we're hearing. So here it is, from the Sri Krishna Lila Stava, Sanatana's Goswami's book, which is meant to be 108 obeisances to Krishna's Vrindavan Leela. And these prayers, 5 verses, from verse 412 to 416, it's a short book glorifying Vrindavan Leela of Krishna. And these verses are the 107th out of 108 obeisances that Sanatana Goswami is offering to Krishna's Leela. And it goes like this: Srimad-Bhagavata Mahima Stotram. Sarva Shastra Dipiyusha Sarva Vedaika Satpala Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja Sarvalokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana Srimad Bhagavata Prabho Kalidwandoditaditya Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya Prema Varshakshadayate Sarvada Sarvasevyaya Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who is supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin Madguno Mad Mahadana Mad Nishtadaga Mad Bhagya Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu, saduta dayin, adini jochata kada, hanamuncha gadachin mam, premnarit kantayospura. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So here we are, Canto 3, Chapter 12, the divisions of the creation. Now, we're beginning with text 48, so we're quite a ways into this chapter. Maitreya Muni is continuing to answer the questions of Vidura, who we met when Vidura was on pilgrimage, after he met Uddhava. So, we've been hearing about the creation of the universe, the different divisions of the creation, different phases of the creation. First Brahma has to do his austerities, and then Krishna meets him, and then he does more austerities. And then, he creates the, material atmosphere, which is going to allow conditioned souls to live in the material world, in material consciousness. And then, there's that incident that he had with his daughter. And then there's his hearing the Srimad-Bhagavatam. So these things are all going in phases, and then he starts to create the living beings. His first mind-born sons, including the Kumaras, they refuse to be Prajapatis. They want to stay celibate and become pure devotees, and gets a little angry. And then Lord Shiva comes out, and then he agrees to create progeny, and they all start to destroy, because that's his nature. He's the incarnation of the mode of ignorance, or rather the guna avatar, what we call the qualitative incarnation of Krishna for the overseeing of the mode of ignorance, which is the destructive mode. So we've heard about all these things. Now we're hearing more. So we're starting with text 48. Brahma is the personal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the source of transcendental sound, and is therefore above the conception of manifested and unmanifested. Brahma is the complete form of the Absolute Truth and is invested with multifarious energies. Purport. The post of Brahma is the highest responsible post within the universe, and it is offered to the most perfect personality of the universe. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead has to become Brahma when there is no suitable living entity to occupy the post. In the material world, Brahma is the complete representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and transcendental sound, pranava, comes from him. He is therefore invested with multifarious energies, from which all the demigods, like Indra, Chandra, and Varuna, are manifested. His transcendental value is not to be minimized, even though he exhibited a tendency to enjoy his own daughter. There is a purpose for the exhibition of such a tendency by Brahma, and he is not to be condemned like an ordinary living entity. And it should be brought in mind, we should remember, that he just thought about it. He didn't actually do it. Text 49. Thereafter, Brahma accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation. Purport. In his former body, which was transcendental, affection for sex life was forbidden, and Brahma therefore had to accept another body to allow himself to be connected with sex. He thus engaged himself in the matter of creation. His former body transformed into fog, as previously described. Text 50. O son of the Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased. Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny. Text 52. While he was thus absorbed in contemplation and was observing the supernatural power, two other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma. Purport. Two bodies came out of from the body of Brahma. One had a mustache, and the other had swollen breasts. No one can explain the source of their manifestation, and therefore until today they are known as the Kayam, or the body of Brahma, with no indication of their relationship as his son or daughter. Text 53. The two newly separated bodies to get united together in a sexual relationship. Text 54. Out of them, the one who had the male form became known as the Manu, named Swayambhuva, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of the great soul, Manu. Text 55. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, there gradually increased generations of population, one after another. 56. O son of Bharata, in due course of time, he, Manu, begot in Shatarupa 5 children, 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Text 57. The father, Manu, handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Ruchi, the middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kardama, and the youngest, Prasuti, to Daksha. From them, all the world filled with population. Purport. The history of the creation of the population of the universe is given herewith. Brahma is the original living creature in the universe, from whom were generated the Manu, Swayambhuva, and his wife, Shatarupa. From Manu, 2 sons and 3 daughters were born, and from them all the population in different planets has sprung up until now. Therefore, Brahma is known as the grandfather of everyone, and the personality of Godhead, being the father of Brahma, is known as the great-grandfather of all living beings. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 11:39 as follows: Vayur yamognir vadonak cheshanka prajapatis tvam. Where did I go? 13, no, I'm in 3:13:1. I skipped ahead.
3:12:57.
Yeah. I just skipped. Vayur yamognir vadonak cheshanka prajapatis tvam pratita mahascha namo namaste stu sahasra kritva punascha bhuyo pinamo namaste. You are the Lord of Air, the Supreme Justice, Yama, the Fire, and the Lord of Rains. You are the Moon, and you are the Great-Grandfather. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you again and again. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, 12th chapter of Srimad-Bhagavatam, entitled Creation of the Kumaras and Others. Haribol, Haribol. Jai, all glory to Lord Brahma. He's done it. Hare Krishna. Yes, another chapter in the history of the universe is now finished, and we're moving on to chapter 13, the appearance of Lord Varaha. Here we go. Text 1. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, O king, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya, Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. Purport. The word Adrita is significant because it indicates that Vidura had a natural inclination for hearing the transcendental message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was never fully satisfied, though continuing to hear those topics. He wanted to hear more and more, so that he could be more and more blessed by the transcendental message. And here is the essence of inquiry and the essence of the mentality that's required to advance in spiritual consciousness to the point where one becomes fixed. And once we get there, then we will not be able to stop hearing. And the more we hear, the more we'll become advanced, the more we'll know, the more we'll want, and eventually Krishna, when he sees that we're very serious, he'll reveal himself to us through the pages of the Bhagavatam and even face to face eventually. Text 2. Vidura said, O great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife? Text 3. O best of the virtuous, O original King of Kings, Manu was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead, Hari, and thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I am very eager to hear. Purport. Srimad-Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the absolute world, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely, the development of devotional service. Text 4. Persons who hear from a spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their hearts of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who rewards his devotees liberation. Purport. Transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it. Because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than he himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar pure devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. Text 5. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna was pleased to place his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura, because Vidura was very meek and gentle. The sage Maitreya was very pleased with Vidura's words, and being influenced by his spirit, he attempted to speak. Purport. The word Sahasrashirshna is very significant. One who has diverse energies and activities and a wonderful brain is known as the Sahasra Shirshna. This qualification is applicable only to the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna and no one else. The personality of Godhead was pleased to dine sometimes with Vidura at his home, and while resting, he placed his lotus feet on the lap of Vidura. Maitreya was inspired by the thought of Vidura's wonderful fortune. The hairs of his body stood on end, and he was pleased to narrate the topics of the personality of Godhead with great delight. Text 6. The sage Maitreya said to Vidura, after his appearance, Manu, the father of mankind, along with his wife, thus addressed the reservoir of Vedic wisdom, Brahma, with obeisances and folded hands. You are the father of all living entities and the source of their subsistence, because they are all born of you. Please order us how we may be able to render service unto you. Purport. A son's duty is not only to make the father the source of supply for all his needs, but also, when he is grown up, to render service unto him. That is the law of creation, beginning from the time of Brahma. The father's duty is to bring up the son until he is grown, and when the son is grown up, it is his duty to render service unto the father. Text 8. O worshipful one, please give us your direction for the execution of duty within our working capacity, so that we can follow it for fame in this life and progress in the next. Purport. Brahma is the direct recipient of Vedic knowledge from the personality of Godhead. And anyone discharging his entrusted duties in disciplic succession from Brahma is sure to gain fame in this life and salvation in the next. The disciplic succession from Brahma is called the Brahma Sampradaya, and it descends as follows: Brahma, Narada, Vyasa, Madhva Muni, Purna Pragya, Padmanabha, Nihari, Madhava, Akshobhya, Jayatirtha, Jnanasindhu, Dayanidhi, Vidyanidhi, Rajendra, Jayadharma, Purushottama, Brahmanyatirtha, Vyasatirtha, Lakshmipati, Madhavendra, Ishvara Puri, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Swarup Damodar, and Sri Rupa Goswami and others, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami, Krishna Das Goswami, Narottam Das Thakur, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. This line of disciplic succession from Brahma is spiritual, whereas the genealogical succession from Manu is material, but both are on the progressive march towards the same goal of Krishna consciousness. Text 9. Lord Brahma said, "My dear son, O Lord of the world, I am very pleased with you, and I desire all blessings from both you and your wife. You have without reservation surrendered yourself unto me with your heart for my instructions." Purport. The relationship between the father and the son is always sublime. The father is naturally disposed with good will towards the son, and he is always ready to help the son in his progress in life. But in spite of the father's good will, the son is sometimes misguided because of his misuse of personal independence. Every living entity, however small or big he may be, has the choice of independence. If the son is unreservedly willing to be guided by the father is 10 times more eager to instruct and guide him by all means. The father and son relationship, as exhibited here in the dealings of Brahma and Manu, is excellent. Both the father and the son are well qualified, and their example should be followed by all humankind. Manu, the son, unreservedly asked the father, Brahma, to instruct him, and the father, who was full of Vedic wisdom, was glad to instruct. The example of the father of mankind may be rigidly followed by mankind, and that will advance the cause of the relationship of fathers and sons. Text 10. O hero, your example is quite befitting a son in relationship with his father. This sort of adoration for the superior is required. One who is beyond the limit of envy and who is sane accepts the order of his father with great delight and executes it to his full capacity. Purport. When the 4 previous sons of Brahma, the sages, Sanaka, Sanatana, Sanandana, and Sanat Kumara, refused to obey their father, Brahma was mortified, and his anger was manifested in the shape of Rudra. That incident was not forgotten by Brahma, and therefore the obedience of Manu Swayambhuva was very encouraging. From the material point of view, the 4 sages' disobedience to the order of their father was certainly abominable, but because such a disobedience was for a higher purpose, they were free from the reaction of disobedience. Those who disobey their fathers on material grounds, however, are surely subjected to disciplinary reaction for such disobedience. Manu's obedience to his father on material grounds was certainly free from envy, and in the material world it is imperative for ordinary men to follow the example of Manu. So, in Kali Yuga, many times both the father or the son, and or both, are not qualified to lead or to follow. And it's causing big problems all over the world. But if a person, whether he be a father or a son, fully surrenders to Krishna and dedicates his life 100% to helping other living beings come to the shelter of the Supreme Father, Krishna, then the disciplinary reaction, although there's always something, there's always some reaction, but it's not taken seriously. So this is the actual solution to all the contending problems. We've heard about that a few times lately. You know, the solution to all the contending problems is actually to develop pure love for Krishna, the Supreme Father, and be a good son of the Supreme Father, and act according to his instructions, to surrender and to work toward his desire to bring back all of his children to the spiritual world where they belong, because we don't belong here. You know, we can't belong here. We can't stay here. Or we will stay here or in the spiritual world eternally, but our forms keep changing here. We can't get the supreme satisfaction we're looking for, the permanent satisfaction we're looking for, and neither can the fathers. So this amiable relationship between father and son is very important for the peace of the world. But it's not to be misunderstood that if a father surrenders completely to devotional service and therefore doesn't take proper care of his son, if he happens to have one, or if the son, with a proper situated father, doesn't follow the father, but goes spiritual way to surrender completely to Krishna, neither of them will be held responsible. Their responsibilities in the world are automatically fulfilled. So we're on text 11? Yes. Since you are my very obedient son, I ask you to beget children qualified like yourself in the womb of your wife, rule the world in pursuance of the principles of devotional service under the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus worship the Lord by performances of yajna. Purport. The purpose of the material creation of Brahma is clearly described herein. Every human being should beget nice children in the womb of his wife as a sacrifice for the purpose of worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead in devotional service. In the Vishnu Purana 389, it is stated, Varnashrama Charavata Purushena Parak Puman Vishnu Aradyate Panta Nanyat Tat Tushakaranam. One can worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu by proper discharge of the principles of Varna and Ashrama. There is no alternative to pacifying the Lord by execution of the principles of the Varnashrama system. Vishnu worship is the ultimate aim of human life. Those who take the license of married life for sense enjoyment must also take the responsibility to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu. And the first stepping stone is the Varnashrama system, the Varnashrama Dharma system. Varnashrama Dharma is the systematic institution for advancing in worship of Vishnu. However, if one directly engages in the process of devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it may not be necessary to undergo the disciplinary system of Varnashrama Dharma. The other sons of Brahma, the Kumaras, directly engaged in devotional service, and thus they had no need to execute the principles of Varnashrama Dharma. Text 12. O king, if you can give proper protection to the living beings in the material world, that will be the best service for me. When the Supreme Lord sees you to be a good protector of the conditioned souls, certainly the master of the senses will be very pleased with you. Purport. The whole administrative system is arranged for the purpose of going back home, back to Godhead. Brahma is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and Manu is the representative of Brahma. Similarly, all other kings on different planets of the universe are representatives of Manu. The law book for the entire human society is the Manu Samhita, which directs all activities towards the transcendental service of the Lord. Every king, therefore, must know that his responsibility in administration is not merely to exact taxes from the citizens, but to see personally that the citizens under him are being trained in Vishnu worship. Everyone must be educated in Vishnu worship and engaged in the devotional service of Rishikesha, the owner of the senses. The conditioned souls are meant not to satisfy their material senses, but to satisfy the senses of Rishikesha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the purpose of the complete administrative system. One who knows this secret, as disclosed here in the version of Brahma, is the perfect administrative head. One who does not know this is a show bottle administrator. By training the citizens in the devotional service of the Lord, the head of a state can be free from his responsibility. Otherwise, he will fail. By training the citizens in the devotional service of the Lord, the head of a state can be free in his responsibility. Otherwise, he will fail in the onerous duty entrusted to him and thus be punishable by the Supreme Authority. There is no other alternative in the discharge of administrative duty. Text 13. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Janardana, Lord Krishna, is the form to accept all the results of sacrifice. If he is not satisfied, then one's labor for advancement is futile. He is the ultimate self, and therefore one who does not satisfy him certainly neglects his own interests. Purport. Brahma is deputed as the supreme head of universal affairs, and he in his turn deputes Manu and others as charge d'affaires of the material manifestation. But the whole show is for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Brahman knows how to satisfy the Lord, and similarly, persons engaged in the line of Brahma's plan of activities also know how to satisfy the Lord. The Lord is satisfied in the process of devotional service, consisting of the ninefold process of hearing, chanting, etc. It is in one's own self-interest to execute prescribed devotional service, and anyone who neglects this process neglects his own self-interest. Everyone wants to satisfy his senses, but above the senses is the mind. Above the mind is the intelligence. Above the intelligence is the individual self, and above the individual self is the super self. Above even the super self is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu Tattva. The primeval Lord and the cause of all causes is Sri Krishna. The complete process of devotional service is to render service for the satisfaction of the transcendental senses of Lord Krishna, who is known as Janardana. Text 14. Sri Manu said, O all-powerful Lord, O killer of all sins, I shall abide by your order. Now please let me know my place and that of the living entities born of me. 15. O Master of the demigods, please attempt to lift the earth, which is merged in the great water, because it is a dwelling place for all the living entities. It can be done by your endeavor and by your mercy of the Lord, and by the mercy of the Lord. Purport. The great water mentioned in this connection is the Garbhodaka ocean, which fills half of the universe. Text 16. Sri Maitreya said, thus, seeing the earth merged in the water, Brahma gave his attention for a long time how it could be lifted. Purport. According to Jiva Goswami, the topics delineated here are of different millenniums. The present topics are of the Shweta Varaha millennium, and the topics regarding the Chakshusha millennium will also be discussed in this chapter. Brahma thought, while I have been engaged in the process of creation, the earth has been inundated by a deluge and has gone down in the depths of the ocean. What can we do who are engaged in this matter of creation? It is best to let the Almighty Lord direct us. Purport. The devotees of the Lord, who are all confidential servitors, are sometimes perplexed in the discharge of their respective duties, but they are never discouraged. They have full faith in the Lord, and He paves the way for the smooth progress of the devotee's duty. Text 18. O sinless Vidura, all of a sudden, while Brahma was engaged in thinking, a small form of a boar came out of his nostril. The measurement of the creature was not more than the upper portion of a thumb. Text 19. O descendant of Bharat, while Brahma was observing him, that boar became situated in the sky in a wonderful manifestation, as gigantic as a great elephant. Text 20. Struck with wonder at observing the wonderful boar-like form in the sky, Brahma with the great Brahmanas like Marichi, as well as the Kumaras and Manu, began to argue in various ways. Text 21. Is this some extraordinary entity come in the pretense of a boar? It is very wonderful that he has come from my nose. 22. First of all, this boar was seen no bigger than the tip of a thumb, and within a moment he was as large as a stone. My mind is perturbed. Is he the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu? Purport. Since Brahma is the supermost person in the universe, and he had never before experienced such a form, he could guess that the wonderful appearance of the boar was an incarnation of Vishnu. The uncommon features symptomatic of the incarnation of Godhead can bewilder even the mind of Brahma. Text 23. While Brahma was deliberating with his sons, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vishnu roared tumultuously like a great mountain. Purport. It appears that great hills and mountains also have their roaring power because they are also living entities. The volume of the sound vibrated is in proportion to the size of the material body. While Brahma was guessing about the appearance of the Lord's incarnation as a boar, the Lord confirmed Brahma's contemplation by roaring with his gorgeous voice. Text 24. The omnipotent Supreme Personality of Godhead enlivened Brahma and other highly elevated Brahmanas by again roaring with his uncommon voice, which echoed in all directions. Purport. Brahma and other enlightened Brahmanas who know the Supreme Personality of Godhead are enlivened by the appearance of the Lord in any of his multi-incarnations. The appearance of the wonderful and gigantic incarnation of Vishnu as the mountain-like boar did not fill them with any kind of fear, although the Lord's resounding voice was tumultuous and echoed horribly in all directions as an open threat to all demons who might challenge his omnipotency. Text 25. When the great sages and thinkers who were residents of Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka heard the tumultuous voice of Lord Boar, which was the all-auspicious sound of the all-merciful Lord, they chanted auspicious chants from the three Vedas. Purport. The word Maya is very significant in this verse. Maya means mercy, specific knowledge, and also illusion. Therefore, Lord Boar is everything. He is merciful, he is all knowledge, and he is illusion also. The sound which he vibrated as a boar incarnation was answered by the Vedic hymns of the great sages in the planets Janaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka. The highest intellectual and pious living entities live in those planets, and when they heard the extraordinary voice of the boar, they could understand that the specific sound was vibrated by the Lord and no one else. Therefore they replied by praying to the Lord with Vedic hymns. The earth planet was submerged in the mire, but on hearing the sound of the Lord, the inhabitants of the higher planets were all jubilant because they knew that the Lord was there to deliver the earth. Therefore Brahma and all the sages, such as Bhrigu, Brahma's other sons, and learned brahmanas, were enlivened. and they concertedly joined in praising the Lord with the transcendental vibrations of the Vedic hymns. The most important is the Kali Santarana Upanishad verse. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 26. Playing like an elephant, he entered into the water after roaring again in reply to the Vedic prayers by the great devotees. The Lord is the object of the Vedic prayers, and thus he understood that the devotees' prayers were meant for him. Purport. The form of your Lord in any shape is always transcendental and full of knowledge and mercy. The Lord is the destroyer of all material contamination because his form is personified Vedic knowledge. All the Vedas worship the transcendental form of the Lord. In the Vedic mantras, the devotees request the Lord to remove the glaring effulgence because it covers his real face. That is the version of the Ishopanishad. The Lord has no material form, but his form is always understood in terms of the Vedas. The Vedas are said to be the breath of the Lord, and that breath was inhaled by Brahma, the original student of the Vedas. The breathing from the nostril of Brahma caused the appearance of Lord Boar, and therefore the Boar incarnation of the Lord is the personified Vedas. The glorification of the incarnation by the sages on the higher planets consisted of factual Vedic hymns. Whenever there is glorification of the Lord, it is to be understood that Vedic mantras are being rightly vibrated. The Lord is therefore pleased when such Vedic mantras were chanted. And to encourage his pure devotees, he roared once more and entered the water to rescue the submerged earth. Text 27. Before entering the water to rescue the earth, Lord Boar flew in the sky, slashing his tail, his hard hairs quivering. His very glance was luminous, and he scattered the clouds in the sky with his hooves and his glittering white tusks. Purport. When the Lord is offered prayers by his devotees, his transcendental activities are described. Here are some of the transcendental features of Lord Boar. As the residents of the upper three planetary systems offered their prayers to the Lord, it is understood that his body expanded throughout the sky, beginning from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, or Satyaloka. It is stated in the Brahma Samhita that his eyes are the sun and the moon. Therefore, his very glance over the sky was as illuminating as the sun or the moon. The Lord is described herein as Mahidra, which means either a big mountain or the sustainer of the earth. In other words, the Lord's body was as big and hard as the Himalaya mountains. Otherwise, how is it possible that he kept the entire earth on the support of his white tusks? Make a note for me to ask about Dravida about this Himalaya, because there should be an A at the end of the Y. Do you have an A at the end of the Y in yours? Himalaya?
I have an A-N, Himalayan.
Yeah,
Himalayan.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a mistake here. This is the latest one, and sometimes when the text becomes transferred over from the first file, the first program, which is Word, onto the folio, sometimes these things happen. It's a quirk in the software.
What was the mistake?
There is no AN at the end of this. It's Himalaya.
Oh.
So make a note. And there's lots of notes that we have now. We have to start.
Yeah, I was trying to. We'll talk about it
Yeah,
here.
yeah. In other words, the Lord's body was as big and hard as the Himalayan mountains. Otherwise, how was it possible that he kept the entire earth on the support of his white tusks? The poet Jayadev, a great devotee of the Lord, has sung of the incident in his prayers for the incarnations. Vastati dasha nasikare darani tavalagna shashini kalanka kaleva nimagna Kesava Dvita Shukara Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare. All glories to Lord Kesava Krishna, who appeared as a boar. The earth was held between his tusks, which appeared like these scars on the moon. Text 28. He was personally the Supreme Lord Vishnu and was therefore transcendental. Yet because he had the body of a hog, he searched after the earth by smell. His tusks were fearful, and he glanced over the devotee brahmanas engaged in offering prayers. Thus, he entered the water. Purport. We should always remember that although the body of a hog is material, the hog form of the Lord was not materially contaminated. It is not possible for an earthly hog to assume a gigantic form spreading throughout the sky, beginning from the Satyaloka. His body is always transcendental in all circumstances. Therefore, the assumption of the form of a boar is only his pastime. His body is all Vedas, or transcendental. But since he had assumed the form of a boar, he began to search out the earth by smelling, just like a hog. The Lord can perfectly play the part of any living entity. The gigantic feature of the boar was certainly very fearful for the non-devotees, but to the pure devotees of the Lord, he was not at all fearful. On the contrary, he was so pleasingly glancing upon his devotees that all of them felt transcendental happiness. Text 29. Diving into the water like a great mountain, Lord Boar divided the middle of the ocean, and the two high waves appeared as the arms of the ocean, which cried loudly as if praying to the Lord. O Lord of all sacrifices, please do not cut me in two. Kindly give me protection. Purport. Even the great ocean was perturbed by the falling of the mountain-like body of the transcendental boar, and it appeared to be frightened, as if death were imminent. Text 30. Lord Boar penetrated the water with his hooves, which were like sharp arrows, and found the limits of the ocean, although it was unlimited. He saw the earth, the resting place for all living beings, lying as it was in the beginning of creation, and he personally lifted it. Purport. The word Rasayam is sometimes interpreted to mean Rasatala, the lowest planetary system, but that is not applicable in this connection, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The Earth is 7 times superior to the other planetary systems, namely Tala, Atala, Talatala, Vitala, Rasatala, Patala, etc. Therefore the Earth cannot be situated in the Rasatala planetary system. It is described in the Vishnu Dharma, Patala Muleshwara Bhoga Sanghatau Vinyasya Pado Pritivim Shibibritaha Yasyo Pramano Nabavo Chuto Mamastu Mangalya Vividaya Harihi. Therefore the Lord found the earth on the bottom of the Garbhodak ocean, where the planets rest during the devastation at the end of Brahma's day. Text 31. Lord Boar very easily took the earth on his tusks and got it out of the water. Thus he appeared, very splendid. Then his anger glowing like the Sudarshan wheel, he immediately killed the demon Hiranyaksha, although he tried to fight with the Lord. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the Vedic literatures describe the incarnation of Lord Varaha Bor in two different devastations, namely the Chakshusha devastation and the Swayambhuva devastation. This particular appearance of the Bor incarnation actually took place in the Swayambhuva devastation, when all planets other than the higher ones, Jana, Mahar, and Satya, merged in the water of devastation. This particular incarnation of the Bor was seen by the inhabitants of the planets mentioned above. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti suggests that the sage Maitreya amalgamated both the Bor incarnations in different devastations and summarized them in his description to Vidura. Text 32. Thereupon, Lord Bor killed the demon within the water, just as a lion kills an elephant. The cheeks and the tongue of the Lord became smeared with the blood of the demon, just as an elephant becomes reddish from digging in the purple earth. 33. Then the Lord, playing like an elephant, suspended the earth on the edge of his curved white tusks. He assumed a bluish complexion, like that of a tamal tree, and thus the sages, headed by Brahma, could understand him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and offered respectful obeisances unto the Lord. 34. All the sages uttered with great respect, O unconquerable enjoyer of all sacrifices, all glories and all victories unto you. You are moving in your form of the personified Vedas, and in the hair holes of your body the oceans are submerged. For certain reasons, to uplift the earth, you have now assumed the form of a boar. Purport. The Lord can assume any form he likes, and in all circumstances he is the cause of all causes. Since his form is transcendental, he is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as he is in the causal ocean in the form of Mahavishnu. Innumerable universes generate from the holes of his bodily hairs, and thus his transcendental body is the Vedas personified. He is the enjoyer of all sacrifices, and he is the unconquerable Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is never to be misunderstood to be other than the Supreme Lord because of his assuming the form of a boar to lift the earth. That is the clear understanding of sages and great personalities like Brahma and other residents of the higher planetary systems. So we're going to stop here. This is a little more than an hour. And let's have some reflections or discussions, questions or whatever there are. First thing that we should understand clearly, or that we should repeat so that we can understand what's going on here. There's two appearances of Lord Bor. One of them is in the Swayambhu Manu period, and the other one is in the Chakshusha Manu period, which is many Manus after. I think it's the sixth. It's either the sixth or the seventh. And each one of the Manus reign for like 700 million years. Something like that. So, long time between one and the other. So, in the first one, he actually appeared from the nose of Brahma, and with the earth, which had been, submerged into the Govardhak ocean, and he picked it up. The second one was the appearance of Hiranyaksha, and he killed Hiranyaksha. after saving the earth. He did both things. So the explanation of our acharyas is that Maitreya he combined both of these pastimes into one for his own reason. Maybe it was to shorten the dissertation or whatever it was. I mean, there's many points to discuss in this. I'll wait till you guys. David Hardy has some reflection or whatever.
I guess I find it interesting that there's a lot of detail in this, how the universe is created, and not just created, but in the previous chapter we were hearing about how what's it called? Generations are produced, or they have to produce population, and Brahma has a hard time with that at first, and my reflection was how detailed this description of the universe is compared to different theologies that I've heard before, and like I was thinking about Manu compared to like Adam and Eve kind of thing. Manu and Shatarupa are like the original progenitors, and I just thought that's it. It's interesting, and it's hard to digest all the details. That was like my main thought, and especially with the different incarnations and when they appear, and that the form of a big boar as God takes this form as a boar. It's extremely detailed, and it's hard to accept all at once, or digest. Yeah, I guess that the difficulty of accepting it is, it comes off as like phantasmagoria, like that, kind of. That's I'm used to just rejecting things that seem like too like too different than like everyday life, like in the Bible the stories are too different, so then like it's outside of my range, and I'm just used to just rejecting that. So that makes it that's the challenge, I guess.
Sure. Because we're always we try to compare, God to ourselves. This is the nature of the material world conditions us to see things very 3 dimensions, very restricted. Our visual perceptions and not sensual perceptions are very limited, and therefore to accept, the things that God can possibly do, very difficult. Actually, Jiva Goswami makes this point in his Satsandarbhas, Tapasandarbha, I believe it was, and he said, unless you can actually accept in principle that God has inconceivable potencies, then you can't understand Him at all. By definition, God has inconceivable potencies. So if one can't even accept the basic definition, then how is he going to understand God and His activities and the activities of creation and all these different things? Because these are not the greatest glories of God. These are just some little minuscule glories of God. He maintains the spiritual world, which is unlimitedly more variegated and bigger, and the activities that go on there are so far beyond our perception that we can't even accommodate it in our minds. So it requires the expansion of our consciousness, and that's the purpose of the first 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam. First 9 cantos of the Bhagavatam are meant to expand our consciousness so that we can actually hear the human-like essence of Krishna without mistaking him to be just an ordinary human being. Because in his topmost manifestation, he acts like a human being. And he has personal relationships with his devotees, spontaneously. So to be able to actually not fall into the trap of thinking that those are ordinary things, and we do the same things, run with girls and anyway, be a thief and do all the things that he does, in his human-like pastimes for the pleasure of his devotees and to give them transcendental pleasure, to understand that all the principles of how things are working on in this world are actually coming from originally the spiritual world. But there, the forms are real. They're not temporary. I mean, this is real, but it's temporary, the forms. So therefore, how can we understand? Unless we understand, how the Lord is creating this material world and giving us all facility, and how it's organized, how it's structured, and why we can't stay in this form forever, why we're not meant to, and how the whole thing works in the history of it, it's going to be impossible for us to actually appreciate properly and eventually to love Krishna. You can't love someone unless you know them. Not possible. It's superficial. Otherwise, it's just sensual gratification. To actually love someone, you have to know them intimately. So all these things are meant to give us enough knowledge so that we can actually fall in love with Krishna. This is way beyond our capacity at the moment. But this is the process of devotional service. To expand our consciousness, expand our heart, to be able to accommodate, the obvious, inconceivable energies that we're dealing with every day. If we analyze our own, Prabhupada oftentimes did this. He would use examples. Here we are, little tiny person in a huge universe, and we can sweat. And Prabhupada said if you could actually collect it all, we could sweat, if we're really working hard, we can sweat maybe a little bit of water, out of our body. So if God is the Supreme Person, what's the problem for him sweating the Garbhodak ocean? If he is God, if he's unlimited. So it's like people who don't believe that could happen are restricting God to a point where he can't be unlimited. It's a circular. Sometimes people criticize us for circular reasoning. We say he's unlimited and therefore he can do this, but the opposite is also true. If he wasn't unlimited, how could he do what he's done to create us and give us the similar forms and forms that can do a little something of what he can do? So if we understand ourselves and what our potencies are, and we understand that the source of ourselves, of all of us, must be some incredibly greater than us, then we can begin to understand how we can do these things. So it's faith, but it's not blind faith. And by performing devotional service, once we get over this threshold of just trying to protect ourselves and satisfy ourselves, so that we can actually consider, theoretically at least in the beginning, that this is actually God working and this is the potential that he has to do things, then we can start to more deeply appreciate it and eventually become attached and fall in love with him for that. And then we can serve him properly and know how to interact. Like such lessons are here, how Swayambhuva and Sadhu, because they were the first human beings. There were other personalities there already who who were producing children, but it needed to be done more extensively, and also on the earth, because the earth is very important. It mentioned in one of the purports how it's 7 times more important than the other lower planetary systems, because here, the fruitive work is done. You earn some higher planets to go to a higher place in the universe, or you earn, lower births by your karmic activities. And in all the other places in the universe, there is no karma in a sense. We're just using up our karmic reactions, that we do on the earth. So the earth is like very important. It's in the middle of the universe. It's like the gateway, to the spiritual world. It's a gateway to the higher planets. It's a gateway to the lower planets. So that's why it's been made such a big deal out of here in this section. And Swayambhuva Manu and the wife are the first human beings. So he's Manu. He's administrating over the 3 worlds. But those other higher planets where people are watching this from, Janaloka, Mahaloka, Tapaloka, and Satyaloka, they're above those 3 worlds. So anyway, I appreciate your point that yes, the details are inconceivable. And there's so much greater than what we've heard in other scriptures. At least there's some chance that we'll be able to come out of our fallen condition and understand what's going on here by hearing the Bhagavatam.
I had a quick reflection too.
Bhakta Matt's going to give a reflection.
In verse 25, it's in the purport, it says the word Maya is very significant in this verse. Maya means mercy, specific knowledge, and also illusion. So it was just interesting that I always thought Maya was just illusion, but it also means mercy and specific knowledge.
Yes.
So
Exactly. Do we have any online?
yeah, we had a couple just comments.
What were the comments? Tell us. Let's get some credit where credit's due.
Rati Manjari says, I feel privileged that I can hear you reading this exalted and extraordinary knowledge while going to a client on my work day. And then she also commented on your response. Just get over the threshold of trying to satisfy ourselves. Beautifully put.
Okay, everybody, we're going to close the shop now. It's 8 o'clock. We went even later yesterday because we had more devotees in the room with more reflections. But thanks a lot, Rati, for your comment. I really appreciate it. You're always encouraging me. I'm trying to always encourage you in devotional service. Thanks a lot for that. So we'll be back tomorrow with more glorification of Lord Bor, that wonderful incarnation of Krishna that saved the day, saved the earth, and allowed the universe to progress and to develop to the point where we can even be here. So, all glories to Lord Bor. Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Samabeda Bhakta Brinda ki jai. All glories to Lord Brahma and Swayambhuva Manu and Shadarupa and the 4 Kumaras and Narada Muni and Marichi and all of the different sages that were created right from the body of Brahma in order to give us the real thing, Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol.